So guess what's the latest right-wing ploy to crash the economy just before the election? War with Iran! On Tuesday, International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde warned that a military strike on Iran could disrupt oil supplies all around the world, causing the price of oil to spike 30%. Lagarde said, clearly it would be a shock to economies if there was a major shortage of exports of oil out of Iran. A sudden and brutal rise in the price of oil would have serious consequences on the global economy. Right now, oil is the lifeblood of our economy. All economic production, from how our food is grown, to how our products are manufactured, to how our pharmaceuticals are made, how our buildings and infrastructure are constructed, how our workers get to and from their jobs, how we power our homes, it nearly all depends on oil. Currently, Brent crude prices are about $123 a barrel. A 30% increase would push the price to well over $160 a barrel. That's higher than where the price of oil peaked in 2008 at $147 a barrel, just months before the entire global economy went into full meltdown. As economist Jeremy Rifkin pointed out, the price of oil is directly related to the stability of the global economy.
At $147 a barrel, people stopped buying because all of the supply chain was too expensive, and the entire economic engine of the Industrial Revolution shut down in July of 2008. That was the great economic earthquake of the Second Industrial Revolution. The collapse of the financial market 60 days later was the aftershock. We now know the outer limits of how far we can globalize this world based on elite fossil fuels. It's about 150 a barrel, and it'll shut down.
So, war with Iran would push the price of oil above that critical $150 mark, forcing the global economy to shut down and plunging the United States into a Great Depression. And if it happens before the election, then you can kiss President Obama's second term goodbye, which might explain why political operatives in the Republican Party and on Fox so-called news are pushing so hard to force the president to launch military strikes on Iran or push Israel to do it for us. All the serious observers looking at the Iranian situation, including 2 former heads of Israeli intelligence and all 18 U.S. intelligence agencies, say Iran is definitely not building a nuke. And now the head of the IMF says military strikes against Iran are not only unnecessary, but would have disastrous economic consequences. People living in Iran and Israel are now talking on Facebook to network with each other and building a campaign for peace in the hopes that their leaders won't take them to war. The fact is, there's not a single real shred of evidence that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, or that Iran, even if it built a bomb, would suddenly turn suicidal and use that weapon. In fact, all 100% of the American intelligence agencies say just the opposite, that this is not a crisis. So what is the problem that Republicans are in such a hurry to fix by bombing Iran? Oh yeah, that guy. Problem is President Obama having high favorable numbers going into an election in November. The last 5 times that oil prices have spiked just before an election, 1976, 1980, 1992, 2000, and 2008, each time the party that held the White House and was running for re-election lost that year's election. Jerry Ford, Jimmy Carter, George Herbert Bush, Al Gore, and John McCain. Each one's party had the White House when oil prices spiked as we went into the November election, and each one lost in large part because of it. A war in Iran now would make it a 6th time. Normally, a U.S. president gets political benefit from going to war, especially before an election. In fact, George W. Bush told his biographer, Mickey Herskowitz, back in 1999, that if he was elected in 2000, he was going to start a war with Iraq to get enough, his phrase, political capital to privatize Social Security and hand it off to Wall Street and have a successful presidency. But in this case, a war with Iran would be a catastrophe. And if President Obama gives in to the right-wingers, who are using our national security as an excuse to get into a war that will bring about another Great Depression in this country, then he will have made one of the all-time dumbest and most destructive blunders in American history. We can't afford war with Iran, and when political propagandists like Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum say we can, it demonstrates that their allegiance is not to the security of the United States of America, but instead to their own political ambitions and to the billionaire campaign donors who've been trying to get President Obama out of office for more than 3 years. Would Republicans really try to start a war with Iran just to crash the U.S. economy so that Obama would lose this election year? You betcha.